Phew. Wow. Hello. How are you? Okay, we're live using our laptop today. So, very different setup for me because everything that could go wrong has gone wrong this morning. Hence, you are only hearing from me and seeing me right this second. But we are live. Finally. How are you? Who's with me? I saw that there was someone in the waiting room. I can't see because of the device I'm using. I don't know if I can. Okay, just orientating myself. Awesome. Awesome, 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 awesome. I hope that you are well. Today is the first day that we have Pluto in Aquarius in 2024. It's not the first time in our lifetimes that we feel it though, because last year at the end of January, we had the same. How does this feel? I had a bit of whiplash myself this morning. I don't want to lie. Where it's oh, wait a minute. Let's just try to be cute. Can we? Because my hair was very cute before I just plonked Ungiani on top of it like I don't care. Excuse me. Um, I see some patterns, literally in the last 4 hours, 24 hours, that feel exactly like late January, February, March last year. And it's just cut for me. Okay. I can't do it. I refuse, Lord Jesus. Jesus is Lord. I'm saying I cannot do it. I cannot. And I think it's also a year that started with such a massive burst of optimism for me, like on a personal level, and the lessons as they play out and the realization of you want things and then they happen and then they're not what you thought they would be. You know what I mean? And that was just the theme. Not that you're not getting what you want, but it's never what you thought it would be. And that was so traumatic for me personally. Anyway, if that's something that you're feeling in your life right now, the thing that's amazing about these last 2 days is that essentially Pluto in Aquarius is saying, act like you know because you do. And you do know. And let me tell you how you know, because we had a retrograde season last year, right? We had a retrograde season in the second half of last year, and most of us can say the second half of last year was really, really good, right? Because we learned things, we accepted things, we were able to release things. And that is what made it so powerful. And when this transit happens, going from Capricorn into Aquarius via a Kazimi in Capricorn, it really, really says, act like you know everything you learned during the age of Capricorn, like all the lessons that you learned between 2006 and 2024, act like you know them and apply them immediately, because this year's got no patience. It's all pace. And, I think the thing with Pluto movements is they're very collective. Um, and it's quite interesting that we're seeing that this current wave, next wave of Izinyanga or African spirituality meshing together with other schools of thoughts and ways of seeing and understanding the world, right? At this time, because if you remember, like 2006, 8, it was like the very first wave, like of amatwasa, really, of post 1976 born children twassering, so millennials. God. So that millennial ingress into ubutwaza, and Credo Mutwa said at the time, wonke amabhujwa azotwasa. If uyalazi bhujwa yini, how does it feel, fam? Did you ever think? But here we are. And it just goes hand in glove with this shift now that we're seeing, that we as healers are now taking our understanding and going back to our teachers, Ubunyanga in the way that Credo was doing it, African um, astrology, which as a movement in a collective planet, Pluto moving out of one sign into another, Pluto representing the collective more than the individual, it's obvious that the way that in which this movement would best be read, or needs to be read, or needs to be read, that we will see more and more African astrologers at this time, because we need these insights, because they're collective and because it affects us collectively, and we read the same stars from the outside in. So when you're reading in terms of African astrology, you start with the collective and then you work your way back inwards, to figure out how you. So we're looking at how it affects the collective, the community, then how you as a part of the community, and finally how within yourself, working outward to your community. Does that make sense? Whereas with other schools of astrology, it generally starts with the individual natally. Your natal chart is very important, and that is the center of it. And it goes with how you transit through the different transits as they affect your own natal placements. And I guess I say all that to say this. My natal chart is ruled by Pluto. So that would mean when Pluto actually moves, and I have a stellium in the house that it rules. I'm a Scorpio sun, Scorpio, like there's more Scorpio in my chart than I care to share with another person. And then Pluto is also my chart ruler. Okay. And that's normally why you would see Scorpios kind of seeming unmoved as people, and having that very broody energy, because the Scorpio ruling sign is a very slow moving planet, which actions are very under the carpet. But now, like when your ruling planet is doing all of that, please, fabric of my sanity feels like it's hanging on by a thread. And it's like, it's one thing if it was emotional, but it was very personal and very communal, and very much not something I was experiencing on my own, which is both good and something else. Bad because I'm a person who enjoys being alone, but good because if I had experienced all those things I've experienced by myself, I might think I was crazy. Would think I'm a crazy girl. Okay, enough about me. Sanibonani sisi. Oh my God. Hayi Bothuli. Wenza ngazuthi angwazi. Please. Please. Girl, not you who lived like front opposite of me and my second husband and cooked for us all the time. And I'm trying to like edit the things. Please, Tuli, I still have the picture of the birthday cake that I made in 2012, where I said, because I only made one cake and you and Buli both have the same birthday, you're going to have to share the cake. And I iced it with your names on either side. Girl, no. See, this is the kind of experience that I'm talking about. Only not in the comment section, but in my real life. Okay. In my real life. And these interactions and connections are people I have known over the course of the last 20 years, just cropping up in loving and affirming ways and out of the blue. And it's overwhelming emotionally. And then you find yourself, I mean, I was on phone calls. The shortest phone call I've had in the last 48 hours was 2 hours, and the longest was 8 hours, and none of them were work related. They were all personal. And it was all like, and it was majority like people I haven't spoken to on the phone in over like 8 years. It's crazy. It was intense. When we said last week that you're going to see what you cannot move forward with and what you can move forward with and where you are supported, and in terms of your community, for me, I saw that like a movie. So ngazizwa ngazuthi angikho right. Yayizwa into. Okay, bayethi kunini ngikhuluma ngami. I hope that like it's making you feel better if you're a woo-woo baby and you've been feeling the movements, to know that Sikowa song. Today, what I want to do is to get into this reading for the new moon through the lens of the reality that we find ourselves in, which is that a boycott has been requested coming out of the occupied territories of Palestine. And immediately when that call was made, following the guidance that Pluto moving into Aquarius says, act like you know because you do. I said, well, I know how to organize. Let me do that. Let me do the thing that I know how to do. And I wanted to have a round table, and it was going to be one conversation here today with multiple members of my community who I think could contribute to the conversation in terms of, how they show up in terms of community in their lives, what the boycott means to them, and all of that. And I thought, and people who were also actively a part of trying to bring about ceasefire. That was my intention. But the reality is that the boycott was called on Thursday evening. Wednesday, something like that. That's when I caught wind of it, if I'm not wrong. And it's really, really short notice for people whose life is actually activism. And then I thought it was a 1 day thing. I was like, why would we just boycott for 1 day? Anyway, it's fine. And then I was like actually informed that it's from today until the 28th. And then I was like, oh, okay, then we can just have someone different every day of the week. And, I feel it's so important when we can explain to people as individuals who do work within community or do work within the frame of activism or what is understood to be that and advocacy, that you share how it came to be that you found yourself doing that. Because then the next person can see that their reason to want to do that is enough. It doesn't need to be a special one. We are all people. Siyalingana singabantu. The potential for me taking an action that brings about change and the potential for you taking an action that brings about change is equal, because each and every one of our voices matter when we're talking in the context of organizing. And um, especially because of how astrologically supported the request for this boycott actually is, which is right on the first day of Pluto in Aquarius 2024. So, revolution. And secondly, happening over the course of the full moon in Leo, which says every voice counts. If you are in this house, you know that Leo is main character energy, and it's always giving act like you're the main character because that's the season that you're in. And I think it is so crazy how Jennifer Lopez actually used this week to release her trailer for her biopic. Oh my god, how insane is that? Anyway, that's the kind of energy that I want to see in my community. I want everybody believing their own hype, and I come from a school of thought where everybody was the main character. And over the course of the coming days, you're going to meet these people and you will realize that yes, everybody is a main character. But and I think there's also an additional layer of preciousness to this moment because of how much this moment calls for us to combine and be community, but also the main character energy, especially in a time when social media has given us these false narratives about like friendship and family and whatever, where they can only be one like winner. Otuli, who's the only person out there in the comment section, as if y'all are not watching with her, is a main character babe. Okay? She's not just an anybody babe. You get me? Like, I don't like you would have to meet her. And if you haven't, there's no shrinking violets in a thriving community. You cannot shut down and wait for someone else to show up. you know uh, what makes it possible for you to show up is when you take someone else's showing up as the beauty that it is, you understand, and join them in that. And that's what this moment in time really holds potential for. That's how revolution comes about, when these whispers start to speak in one voice. When one person whispers and says, "We have no bread and the queen is eating cake," and the other says, "I saw that myself. What should we do?" Before you know it, it's off with her head and the end of fealty, the beginning of democracy. That is what happened the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. Okay? And we saw one of the greatest main characters to ever main character rock up on the scene, Shaka Zulu. Oh, guys, the children that are going to be born in the next 20 years, you better learn how to hold space for your ego because they are the main character. Because they're literally the Pluto in Aquarius babies. Shaka Zulu was a Pluto in Aquarius baby, like in terms of natal charts. So there are things, fast moving planets show up in very specific personality traits. Slow moving planets show up generationally because they will be the same natal placement for a swath of people. You get me? So millennials astrologically speaking, should really be gauged along the duration of Pluto. You know what I mean? Or but like generally what happens is like Gen X and millennials, but then there's going to be those other things. We're going to have different Mars and Saturn. Do you know? Like the slightly slow Saturn, like 3 4 years, 3 4 year distance of movement. Do you get me? Yeah. Because Saturn comes back out every 30 years into the same sign. So that means that it's moving a lot faster. It's not taking 20 years to move through the zodiac. Is this an astrology lesson, guys? Maybe it is, because if you are a woo-woo baby and you've been asking yourself, then here we go, right? So how the Saturn movements would go is that if you divide 33 by 12 signs of the zodiac, that's going to give you sub 2.5 3 years, right? So that's the like working style is going to be determined by Saturn working style, da da da. So people in that working bracket, in terms of when you're thinking about things like how do I build my teams, and you're looking at people's ID numbers, and you're like, you want people, you when you want a good mix age wise, then you can like make the gaps longer than 3 years in age between people, because then what you're going to get is a dynamic of differing perspectives and working styles that can support each other when there's different ebbs and flows, you know, in individual ability to show up, right? However, they will be able to carry as a team, because that space means that whoever's up and able to be like leading the team at a certain time will have the momentum to carry the others through their bare minimum, and they can switch. You know, if you want a dynamic team, that's how you would do it. If you want a team where you want like say like soldiers, you know, like in the barracks, you want one mind, one mood. You don't want any variation and dynamism and personality. Then you want to keep the gaps in terms of how you form a regimen closer, sub 3 years. Do you get me? That's how we're speaking when we say African astrology is collective, etc. Okay, fine. The astrology lesson over. I don't know who wanted an astrology lesson today, because hi, Uitolile, my baby. Me personally, what I need is a glass of water right now, and I'm gonna grab my coffee, which has gone cold, absolutely, but she's gonna go in because she loves her coffee, and we're gonna get through everything that is actually already written and transcribed about the specificities of how we use this moment, yo, to build spiritual resilience, show up and participate as part of community. Yo, how we go about being counted within this revolution. And maybe the first 25, 30 minutes of this conversation were necessary so that when you're considering your allegiances, your groupings, your understandings of community, when you understand what shapes what with that perspective and what it is that we will say here, then it can help you understand what it is that is influencing the way it is that you're showing up when you're showing up. And through that understanding, enable your consistency, right? because the revolution takes a village, and each and every one of us is going to have to be respected as a member of the village and hold themselves accountable as a member of the village and participate as a member of this global village. Because if we allow this conflict in the Middle East to escalate any further than it has now, it's been said, we know what's going on. Israel wants to goad the world into another world war. And it's the same gang. The Germans, the Americans who are there wanting this war. And it's like the Americans are like also a nation born during out of Pluto and Aquarius. So that main character energy that they give us, right? And this is the thing. When you have a return, right? So Pluto and Aquarius is a Pluto return. And there's nobody living who's going to experience a Pluto return in their lifetime, because 2 to 3 centuries is not the kind of lifespan of a human being. But the return of Sanbona, I'm seeing all the faves. I love you guys. Thank you for commenting. Please keep doing that because Nyankutaza. But when you see the return of a planet coming into where it sits natally, right, is the purpose that that planet presents in its natal setting being reiterated, right? So America was born out of their own civil war, and that was allegedly to end slavery, um, and bring freedom and equality for all. They promised reparations. They made a lot of things. Was it? Oh, no, no, no. My bad. I'm thinking of the wrong war. The war that that birthed America. The right timeline that I should be referring to is America's independence from Britain. They fought to be recognized not as the children of the queen, but as adult children of the queen, um, and their own person, right? Just like any child wants their emancipation, but their parent was saying, no, I don't let you out of my house. Like, that house that you are building there is my house because you're my child. And they said, well, we're going to see about that. We believe in freedom and equality for all. Where is the freedom and equality for all in America as it experiences its Aquarius return? And here's the thing, Pluto return is death, is how Pluto rebuilds. Endings are beginnings in Pluto. It is the phoenix. Just the same way that they ended empire there and they have become their own empire. Let's see how it plays out, right? Let's see how it plays out, because how movements work is planetary movements. There's many different aspects that are moving in different ways, and those different aspects all intersect and basically the things that we're seeing now is that we're seeing a lot of the beginning of sort of what was happening in the November eclipse, okay, cool. And now this moment, like yesterday, whatever you were doing yesterday, exactly yesterday, the actions that you were taking are the seeds that you're planting for what you're going to see on the exact day of the mid-year solstice today. You don't get that every day. Where like you're able to like collectively um mark things. And I told you guys in the year reading how that mid-year solstice brings this change. And then let's talk about how to make the most of this change, right? Because we want a really good time when we get to the mid-year. But I am thirsty, I am dying. I need to get my coffee. I jumped into this thing straight out of Ukpalaza. Do you know why? Because I'm just like, okay, let me get my setup going, and then boom, ilokunjan. Everything that could go wrong was going wrong, and then 5 minute delay for us to get started. But let us get into this reading. Just gonna grab my coffee. Enough about honey. Isikhathi sokupha umakhosi nomabutho isikhundla sakhe kuze kuthi sikhona ukwenza lo msebenzi esihlangane ngawo namhlanje. Akubongwa bakithi, it's always a privilege to be in your presence. Nisenza abantu. Nginivusela nonke. Siyajabula. Hey, kunzima ukuvuka. Sibonge ukuthi nani nivukile nahlangana nathi namhlanje. Let us get into what it is that we can do as members of the community in this boycott. And in this moment in history, regardless. So as we sit here today, it is Sunday. Excuse me, I don't know why Rexy, if you guys can hear Rexy barking as loud as she is, I feel like I should run and check how she is, but it's fine, really, it's fine. She is a sprightly little thing, and if it was really that serious, I mean, she would be here, right? It's just my natural inclination where dogs are concerned. And let me, before we proceed, because we did announce and share that Uchoki, my mom's dog, who was 17 years old, was ailing back in December. He was very old anyway. In 2017, the vet was like, this man is really old and we don't know how much longer you should expect. And that was 2017, so that he was still kicking it with us in December was really amazing. He had been on end of life care. However, what happened was when my Congo died the day after my birthday last November, he took a turn. Initially, he just became much more protective of me and started sleeping where my dog used to sleep instead of where he normally slept, and holding space for me. And when we got closer to Christmas, though, it just started to, yeah, I think it just got heavier and heavier on him. And the only thing I prayed for was, can he just stay with us through Christmas? And he gave us more than that. Yo! He was born in the age of Capricorn in 2008, and he passed on the last full day of Pluto in Capricorn that we're going to see in the way that it really represents the age in which he was a king He was our protector, he was such an incredible part of our development and spiritual development as a family, because my mother's always dreamt medicine and then you go dig it, but we'd always go with other people, other men, because being out on the mountains by yourself for things like that. But then, uh, when my mom's dog started to accompany her on these excursions, then she was like, oh, wait a minute, but like, what if I could just go out on my own without these niggas, just with the dog? And then it changed from that to now being able to pray on a mountain on her own, and these are the principles then that are internalized for me when I become a Sangoma and when I get my dog. It creates a level of independence in my practice that I might otherwise not have had, because when I do work on the mountain, the only thing I need is my dog. There are obviously ezinye events where you will always take someone who is a protector, because when you are dealing with certain kinds of dangers, you have to expect that okubi kuphuma kabi, and you have to take precautions. Anyway, um, that is the nature of the influence that Jockey had on this house. And as a person, his last night on earth, I spent with him on Wednesday evening. And I didn't know for a fact that it was his last night, but I just knew that I go to bed when he goes to bed, because he's old. Rexy's there, she can be a guard dog, but he was old. And that night, he just never really got around to sleep. He slept for like about an hour after I had to do some woo-woo work, but he was back up again at 3 a.m. and he was gone by 3 p.m. And we are so grateful to have had the time we had with him, and the 48 hours since he passed have been a whirlwind um, of just the most amazing, fast paced happenings and opportunities cropping up. And kuyavela ukuthi uba ilihlozi elihle. And I think that is the essence of what it means when we speak about Pluto moving and bringing life through ending. Because in these last 24 hours, he's already changed my life. It's ka Sesotho ba re lefu la hao la mphidisa. It's not because I had a life insurance policy on my mother's dog. No, just because he's about that business. He landed in the afterlife and said, let's go. Of course, I did ask Congo ukuthi amhlangabeze. And she loved her uncle, and her uncle loved her. She was a baby girl, and now she's with our favorite. So, okay, I think we had to pay homage where we pay homage, because ngeke sizenze ngazuthi singabantu ngaphandle kwabantu, and ayikho impilo noma umphefumulo lomncane emehlweni edlozi nomdali. Life is life. And I think in this moment, if life is life, whether it is a plant life and the lesson that medicine comes into your life to teach you, or an animal's life and the lesson that comes into your life to teach you, or a human life and the color of their skin being different from yours, a life is a life. And today, before the sun sets, thousands of lives will be snuffed out in genocide. Genocide in the occupied territories of Palestine, genocide in Sudan, genocide in Congo, conflicts we can't quite define, or I don't feel qualified to define, but subjugation in the Gambia and in our neighbors to the north, Zimbabwe. Yo! People will die as though they are not people who are equal to those who will kill them. But they are. People just like you and me. They're main characters in their life stories. And when they die, their story dies. You know, reading through these notes, I've actually spoken on exactly what I wrote. I mean, I didn't know what I wrote because I wrote this in a stream of consciousness at 3 a.m. on Friday morning. So I really did not know what I wrote. But let me get to this part. Whoa! These differing genocides, yo, they all need a voice. There's a reality that we face, right? We just lost half our audience when I brought up the reality that we face. People turn themselves away from the ugliness of the reality we find ourselves in. It's cute when we key. It's hard when we have to admit that we're sitting, breathing, maybe having a savannah for breakfast, and intangayako is squandering or crawling around in the rubble for the remains of their firstborn, crawling into a cave to get the stuff that powers the batteries that allows you to watch this little conversation we're having today, or cowering in a back room, unable to have a conversation like we're having today for fear that the women in their lives will be violated in ways that bring a pain that could possibly be worse than death. This is the reality. That's what's happening right now. And this full moon says you're the main character. Now, if you have been privy to anything, you know, of the events as they've played out since October 7, it's that you will know that as much as all these genocides have been ongoing since October 7, the voice of Palestine has been the loudest. The attention has been focused on Palestine. And I'm going to explain one thing. October 7 happened during that eclipse season, right? That I'm saying is affecting this moment in time. That was in Scorpio and Taurus, which is about death and ownership. Death happened so that a question about ownership could begin to be had. And that's where we are now. And there's an ongoing conflict. But there's another thing that also happens, right? Is that the main characters we're seeing, Motaz was already a journalist, right? I don't know these people. I saw them on the TL just like you. I wasn't following in the way that you might imagine I was. I was following on my phone just like anybody else. But is her name Bisan? Bisan was a content creator. I think she was on TikTok making really cute lifestyle content. And then as the days happened, after October 7th, how I came to discover who she is like through a video where she was literally saying, I'm sorry I'm not doing our regular content. Like I'd love to be frolicking, but you see this backpack on my back, I have to walk to safety because our houses are being bombed and they say it will be safer in the south. And I watched everything through her experience. Why? Because she's the kind of content I would normally consume, right? Um, Beauty, lifestyle, yada, 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 with the lens that is framed by her lived experience, which is, I love that kind of content. It's authentic, but it's still about what it's about. Do you know? Like, you can't not be a refugee. I'm a refugee and I talk about beauty, you know? I live in the largest open air prison in the world and I talk about beauty. Okay, so the time for talking about beauty has ended. I need to talk about death because I'm seeing more death than I've ever seen in my life before. And that is how I begin to follow. And I don't even follow her as in I clicked the button follow. I literally just recognize when it's her content and I know that I resonate with her style and I listen, right? And that is how we come to being radicalized, right? When we see someone we resonate with sharing a story, and the thing is that there is, was, has been a very, very strong Palestinian content creator presence on the internet, and they've been using content as um, a weapon in their struggle against Israel consistently. And that's why their voice seems the loudest now, because how they've always done it is I'm a Palestinian living in the city of, I am exiled from my place of birth because, and this meal that we're cooking today reminds me of my grandmother who suffered XYZ but carried this recipe with her into the new world. And this is how I keep the memory of her life alive. And when you love cooking content, you're being radicalized through that, right? Um, Little says she's the one who requested the astrology lesson. So that's why we're hearing so much from Palestine. Their strategy already existed. The blackouts that they're experiencing today, it's not the first time. So they already had a network where they can say, eSIMs, get us online, they're shutting us down. They already is a network of Palestinians living in exile as broad and as wide as you can imagine because they've been in this struggle since 1948, right? Whereas some of the conflicts that we're seeing now didn't start in 1948 because Africa's wave of freedom began in 1947 when they said the winds of change are blowing through. And if you remember, we did refer to that speech as a representation of the astrology of last August, right? When Uranus retrograded in Taurus, and we said that represents a moment of revolution. And because of the timing of it, it's revolution in Africa, and it's we're going to band together collectively, and we're going to see how that thing that started in August is going to become something unimaginable over the course of the next 5 years, right? But those three countries doing bloodless coups, who even reported it? Because it wasn't on the news. It wasn't on the news, it was on TikTok. But because it was joy, it was resonance. Western media does not pick that up because that's black skin. And because we love to laugh through our problems, as Africans, we were able to share in their success, pushing out puppet governments brought in by colonial powers and bringing in whatever it is that will usher in the future. But at least it's not that. At least they're not taking their national GDP and pouring it into France's coffers for no reason. We're happy for them, right? But the reality is that the echo isn't as loud and the story doesn't live as long because there aren't as many people living in the diaspora from these countries who are comfortable speaking about their origin, being from these countries, because they are still dealing with the reality of being ostracized as immigrants in the countries that they have sought shelter and refuge in. You get me? So when we're xenophobic to our brothers and sisters from these countries, from the Sudan, and then we say, but who is speaking for Sudan? But if somebody jumps on a soapbox and says that they're from Sudan and we should have our eye on Sudan, yada yada, you're gonna say, but where are your papers? Why do you drive that car? How come you work that job? That's the role that you're playing in perpetuating Sudan's struggle. So if you want Sudan to be free, start by ending your own internalized xenophobia, Afrophobia. Like, understand that your brother is your brother is your brother. And if your brother eats with you, as long as we both sleep, sweetly live and eat, then it gives us a better chance of all being free. You get me? Because if we can allow people to single themselves out and say that I am an immigrant to this country, I am a person who is only here because the truth is in Wasan Shire's words, you only leave home if home is the mouth of a shark. And this is the nature of the beast that I ran from. And I need you to stand with the people I left behind because of XYZ. Or to be the voice, because if I'm the voice, as the horrors we have seen with Sudanese content creators in the diaspora, is that they have to be very cautious with what they say. Because if they are identified and they still have extended family back home, or if you're a foreign exchange student, that's how you got out, and people are saying, you're Sudanese, why ain't you speaking? Do people understand that that person, if their immediate family is back home, what they will do to their immediate family when they know that they're the ones who spoke out, when they make that connection? Imagine you're sitting at Wits University, you see what's happening in Sudan, you decide that you're going to go live on TikTok and talk about it. And unbeknownst to you, malicious spies are observing your actions. Connections are traced back to your family, back home, and your home is broken into. Your mother is raped in front of your younger siblings and your father. Not killed. How do you live? That's why we are hearing other voices louder than others. And if you want to hear a voice, let it be yours. Get on your main character bullshit and speak the fuck up. You be the voice for Sudan. What do you know? Let me tell you how I became a person who can speak on Palestine. Because I don't know nothing. I don't know what I feel I should know. That's why I limit what I say in the manner that I do. because life is lifing me at the moment. I make no beans about the ways in which life rocks me, and you, if you're a member of this audience, then you know, right? Um, and as things have been unfolding, I've been grappling with my own things. But here's where I started um, gaining understanding of the existence of a place called Palestine. Members of my family returned from exile around 1992-ish. No, 92, 3, 92, 3, right? Um, and we would start watching the TV more and more and more as things got closer and closer and closer to 1994. Mind you, TV was in sessions back then. Guys knew that. TV used to be like a 2 hour session, a 4 hour session, yada, yada, yada. But as children, we were now permitted to even start watching the evening sessions more and more. And the news was only in English or Afrikaans back then. Um, really, really, I do think that there were other things, but this is a Swati Bantustan, so I don't think we were getting the Zulu news. I think we started getting the Xhosa news closer to the time of the elections much later. But basically, you get me. Um, Freedom comes, yada yada, and we're encouraged to watch the news. And as we watch the news, what we see is Madiba is loves hanging out with this guy, like who's about yay high to him. And whenever he's hanging out with that guy, he's going to be wearing this black and white scarf, military fatigues. And this guy might be wearing a tunic, might be wearing military fatigues as well. This guy is apparently Yasser Arafat. I don't know that until it was actually confirmed to me on a phone call on Friday. Not gonna lie, not gonna lie, not gonna lie. Okay, but anyway, fast forward to around the time that I'm finishing high school. No, actually, after college, we had a bit of a wave, Boma 2007, 8 of fashion that was you wore like three vests layered over each other, and then you wore that scarf that Yasser Arafat used to wear, but we used to have it in black and whites, like his, pinks, purples, all the kinds of colors. You know how like amapai are like that now, where they starting to come out with like the most awesome colors that actually match your beads as well, like that. This is called a kafir. Okay, I had it in every color. Now you buy it today, you're actually supporting the movement inside Palestine. Did I have any political context for that? No. The guy in the tuck shop at Red and Yellow, 2007, 6, 7, 8, that guy who made the best hot chocolate on the face of the planet, that old man, he was Muslim and he used to always compliment my scarf. And he probably called it a kafir. Listen, me, did I know? Did I know? If I'm pronouncing it wrong right now, correct me because my ignorance is vast. Okay. What I'm doing is stepping into my main character energy with what I know, which is this thing and how to tell a story. Okay. So this is my story. You can correct the facts around it, but I'm not giving you history. I'm giving you the context of how I came to speaking up. Cool. I graduate, go live abroad, yada, 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 yada. I had done fashion design, but like born out of necessity, yada, 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 yada. Great stuff, but too time consuming, very cost intensive stuff. I wanted to do what I studied for. I did what I studied for. I burnt out. Round one. It's fine. Mfelempini. I go back. So I burn out in London, 2008. But no, I go back 2009, I hit Ireland, I burn out in Ireland, okay? Because apparently being a copywriter is not as easy as I thought because I was burning out, okay? Love writing, but apparently I burn out, or maybe being kulelilos, you know what I mean? But whatever. Come back to South Africa, and I also had this experience of what the deepest and most incredible yearning for clothes that reminded me of home, and there were none abroad. Do you know? And I wanted to start a website where it was like a mall for all the African fashion designers to get and like to be in one place and you find everybody there. Do you know? I came back and I proper lost every shred of sanity and dignity I had left in the years that I tried to bring that dream to becoming a reality. And I had to concede that I would have to go back to being a fashion designer myself if angifuna ukuhlanya and I want to be a person, because I need to eat. And 2011, I went back to that, right? And started very small scale. My fashion design career didn't start small scale at all. My fashion design career started really big. I was a model. I was at a party, Black Rose party in Four Ways. There used to be a club at that place called Monte Casino. And inside Monte Casino, there was a party by this brand called Black Rose. And the real models were on the ramp, Abu Babalwa, who are like long, tall people. But being a model still, with my Z card, with my agency and whatever, us character models and editorial models were still invited. Um, so that's what took me there. And I was wearing clothes that I had made for myself. And Opa Bopape spotted me, said to me, "What do you do? Why are you here? You look amazing." And I said, "I'm a model." And he said, "How are you a model? Babalwa is a model. Look at the height of you. You're not a model. Who made your clothes?" I did. "You're a fashion designer. Stand over there." Boom. That was me. And from that picture in the press, it went into getting orders from stores. And that's how I went into fashion design, you know? Um, so doing one-on-one things, I used to do one-on-one things for myself, for my sister, for my friends, like when I'm experimenting with new ideas, new concepts, right? In the same way that I was my own canvas. And then from this canvas, they chose what they knew was marketable. I used my friends and family in that way, right? Community, how you build yourself and all sorts, right? Fine. Now it's 2011. I don't have a network that gives me access to being in shops because I'm back from being abroad. I'm doing one by one by one by one. And if you understand the margins of fashion, when you don't have a big brand that people trust yet, you know that they're slim. It is so expensive to be a fashion designer because the costs are immense. And people think that it is so easy to make a garment like this, which is actually made by me and was a blueprint. It's a golf dress. You'll definitely see content of me wearing this golf dress on the golf course. Okay, anyway, but um, this was a sample of something that we took mainstream, and I'll tell you. And the reason I'm telling the story is how I actually came to know Palestine and how I got back into uh, being a fashion designer who was supplying stores, not other people's stores, though my own. But here's how it happens. I find a shop called Carodia's Fabrics on Market Street in 2011, and they have the most incredible selection. And there are a few of South Africa's most prolific designers who are actually supplied by them, but they have exclusivity contracts with those designers. If a designer samples a fabric, They're going to hold it for them. And this is 2011, so please, you mustn't go to Carodias wanting policies from that they were doing to help us Black children come up in this world. Okay, times have changed. People can charge 20,000 for one dress today. That was not the reality that we were in back then. Okay, so don't go asking for these kind of favors. But these are the kind of favors that helped us become people in Paratwi. Um, so you would come in and you would say, listen, I really like this fabric, but there's potential that it could go into a fashion show, right? And if that fashion show gets a lot of attention, then I would need to roll it out, but I don't have the money to buy the whole stock of it. But and also, like, it will dilute my brand presence if other people have the same access, to this. And what Mohammed, the owner of Carodias, would do is say, okay, cut a sample. Um, so you buy what you can afford, which is your 3 meters with your 150 or 300 or 400 rand, because fabric is expensive and that's a lot of money back in the day. I don't know ngoba nina nifuna ukuthenga iy'mpahla nge-150, nifuna ingubo ibiphelele ngo-150. You buy that price, the price of a sample fabric is what you expect to pay for a finished garment. Eh, Are you are you okay? Anyway, fine, let's leave that alone. We go, and this is how I'm able to rebuild my fashion business after losing my dignity and my sanity, trying to start a website 20 years before my government would think it was worthy of being funded, right? Anyway, um, this goes on for a period of time, and get better and better and better at this, and get finally to the place where ngingene ephehlweni 2014, upgirl athwase, I come out the other side of that. Before even ngiphume ephehlweni, I have an opportunity to open my own store. It's November of 2014. And now I'm standing there and I'm about to make the biggest order I have ever made. You know, that awkwardness when you're about to swipe like proper big money, how it becomes tense and quiet? It's literally the reason why Americans are always fighting over the bill. It's that emotional stuff that money and money going out does to us. Now, at that time, I am aware that my emotional relationship with money, and I know what this is going to do to me because my sister is already a wealth coach. So as I'm standing there and I'm regulating my breathing and like tapping into myself, regulating my breathing a la Vipassana, if you know, you know, and I'm just doing what you do when you're trying to self-regulate and you're in a public place, like massaging my chakra points and taking deep breaths and looking around me for something to focus on so that I don't have a full on panic attack. There's this map on the wall right behind the till, and it's a green map and it's like long, and then it's like got like five small maps next to it, and the first map is solid green and then it gets more and more white until it shows the big one, which has got two small places and a lot of white. And I'm like, and then what's this about? I found the distraction that's going to carry me through this transaction and take us out of the awkwardness, right? Between myself and Mohammed, who's done me more favors than I ever deserved, because I was literally losing my mind. And he had the patience for me. When Muhammad starts to tell me the story of Palestine and how him being in South Africa is a result of his parents and grandparents being dispossessed and blah and blah and blah, and I'm like, what? And that's where my loyalty to Palestine became solidified. And I didn't seek out anything specifically, but because I have that context in my mind now, that subtext in my mind. Any new information that comes in about Palestine, I view through that lens, that a person who is in my country because of dispossession in the place of their birth gave me more than my countrymen could give me to enable my personhood. And when I start to learn that South Africa's relationship with Palestine predates apartheid in Palestine, Palestine was the sore thumb of the Middle East, seeing South Africa as people before apartheid was actually declared in South Africa, seeing their subjugation and the parallels between ours. They didn't need for Madiba magic to be a thing for Palestine to say South Africa is suffering the same as we are. For Palestine to give us community, give voice to our struggle, because as I've said, their networks have existed for a long time. And when the armed struggle happened, those same networks existed. And that is why I saw Yasser Arafat and Nelson Mandela sitting side by side, because they radicalization and camaraderie comes from a place before the world put cameras in their faces and considered them to be leaders, from a time when the world considered them to be both terrorists. And today they mark moments in history that make the creation of nations, especially our nation. And South Africa today is looking at April as when we will enter our Saturn return, if I'm not wrong. And that means that we're going to be, oh, I lie? Yes, no, I'm not lying. It is. Yo! This Freedom Day that's coming is around the time of our Saturn return. Yo! And when that happens, it's going to ask us, ukuthi, Ganti, South Africa, izeleni? What is the work that you are here to do in the world? Pluto is your life and death. Saturn is your work, your discipline, what your ideology that you're gathered around, like the things that make you function. And just the way that America is facing destruction because of their Pluto return, South Africa is facing not destruction, but self reflection and interrogation about their purpose for being here as a nation, right? So it stands to reason that in the year of South Africa's Saturn return, South Africa says, we're going to act in a manner that is reflective of the reason that we are, right? Through Saturn. So just Google Saturn return. If you're older than 30, you've gone through a Saturn return, right? It happens anytime between the age of 27 and 31. So Loyamko, you know the 27s club, when rock stars die, and like, because it's like they can't bring the wounds that they're carrying through the fire of Saturn return, and they die before that revolution happens, just the same way that Jockey died before Pluto went into Aquarius because he had done all that he came to do. Some people's lives are long enough at 27. They're not going to have an evolution and a rebirth in this life. They're going to have to die in order to be reborn in the afterlife and reincarnate with that understanding of themselves, or whatever the case might be. I don't know. It's not my journey. I'm just reading what it is, right? So that's why you see South Africa playing main character at this moment in time. And as a member of the South African community, which is what I'm going to presume you to be, because this is Sangoma Society, and Sangoma is a South African concept. Word, okay, I know it's a Bantu thing, and I know that Sangoma is as a word root in and globally we are all one thing. Angali ngithi mina ngikhulumela ubunyanga bami nobungoma bami, isikhundla sami njengomalaphi wendabuko. I can only speak from the context of my lived experience because that is the lens that colors in my perspective, right? And from where I sit, what I see is this: we have entered an age in which we are going to be held accountable if we intend to play a part of our community, and we're going to have to experience what accountability is. And it's not all nice. If we want the privileges that come with what it is to be able to call yourself South African and the rest of the continent Africa and the United States of Africa, and this would be New York, if you want those privileges, they come at a cost to the community. It's a responsibility. It is not a right. You get me? Um, that's where we sit. And as the collective Abantu Bagamadiba, um, if we look at the Saturn return of his legacy and how his legacy impacted our families and where we stand now and the privileges we enjoy now, and how are we senzani thina? Thandiswa Mazwai said, nizilibele uba nizalwa ngobani. She cried that cry in 2000 and Bani. Exactly. When Pluto first made its ingress into Capricorn out of Sagittarius, and then it had that 2-year window. And then when Pluto went solidly into Aquarius, she came and she said, ndizayilungisa mina lento ngaphandle kwebhoko. Mangutyana makakhothama abuya ngenye. And today we're seeing what she's doing to fly our flag. I'm very excited for that tiny desk. But this is what I'm saying when I say you use your voice in the way that you can. That's one example of how to use your voice. There will be many other examples that I hope to bring to your attention. I hope that me sharing how I came to use my voice today gives you an understanding of how small, you don't need a reason. You've got a mouth, use it. You know what I mean? Like, if it makes you feel a certain way, even if the only thing you're saying is it makes me feel a certain way, it gives another person to say, hell, it makes me feel the same way. And then when we are three together, we say, what the hell are we going to do about it now? Because it makes us feel that way. And then the next thing you know, there is a case being brought to The Hague against, you get me? Exactly. So speak. You have a mouth, use it. That's what this full moon wants, and that's what this age we're in is going to require of you. Because if history tells us anything, and you can go back in history thousands of years because of the miracle of archaeology, and the beautiful thing about astrology is that it is based purely on science. Purely on science, it's numbers, right? And what we do is we are mapping correlation, right? This was happening at this time astrologically. Historically, this was happening. We know this was happening because of this. It's documented in this way, and this way, and this way, and this way, all the way back to the Stone Age. So if Pluto in Aquarius is bringing revolution, revolution is coming. Revolution is a revolution is a revolution is a revolution. Ayikho into esizoyenza. It's what it be. So mayiza wena uyobe uhleliphi? What's the role that you're going to play? That's all this full moon is asking. Um, and its answer to you is you're going to be the main character. Take a page out of that J-Lo book and join us. If you're in this house, you know that the one thing that we've recommended for this year is journal, guys, journal. I'm going to put it in the community tabs what journal prompts I shared yesterday, but the journal prompt and intention setting for this full moon is just one thing. What can I release in order to allow myself to be the main character in my story? What can I release in order to allow myself to be the main character in my story? What do I have to release in order to be the main character in my story? Okay? And if you're enrolled in Clearing into Consciousness, that is the journal prompt that you're going to use to set your intention for this week. The session begins tomorrow. You will get email. If you find that your course access is restricted, please remember to send back your NDA because we are moving, baby girls. We have now finally got our own community platform within our school platform. So there's no more Zooms, there's no more having to go to Facebook to interact. Everything is going to be happening in one place. And because of that, you know how much we open up and share in that space. And it would be very unfair if I chose to not honor the vulnerability of the sacredness of our vulnerability and how it fosters our community by allowing people to listen in without having any legal framework to protect the secrets that you share in these spaces with us. We know that between ourselves, one-on-one as client and patient, that umthetho weshoba governs what is private in that. But when we're looking at how we show up in these group settings, it is absolutely, absolutely pivotal that we extend imithetho yomsamo in the ways that best foster and support community because siyanidinga nisenza abantu. We also are encouraged by your participation. There have been so many cycles where I just feel like I can't. And then I can because somebody decides that they're running it this month. And when that enthusiasm is like on a group setting where everything is happening in one place, like it will be now. This is the beta, so please be kind. And because it is the beta, if you're unable to do anything, yada, yada, we're on boycott. If you're struggling with access, blah, 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 just email. Send those emails, brah. And it's like whether you're emailing me directly, if you came to us through Makosi Kanyesa and you're emailing Umakosi, or through Makos Lero and you're emailing Umakos Lero, email us, hit us up. We're going to be here holding space this week, and we'll be doing the first part of the dismount from this clearing here on Thursday, all together, just reflecting on how we have come to understand in our own personal capacities what it is that we individually have to release in order for us to allow ourselves as individuals to be main character energies, right? And I think it's going to be such an interesting discussion because there is such all the things I've spoken about today are in play in terms of it's a dynamic team. We have a lot of age, like very serious age gaps. It's a 10-year age gap. So 5 years between five, 8 or whatever. Though that's how it is. So there's a very dynamic team, and that can tell you a bit about us. Um, uh, but there's millennial and Gen Z, so different, Plutos, natal Plutos. We might have three different natal Plutos. I'm not sure. No, no, no. I think we have one. We maybe share the same natal Pluto. I've never checked. Yeah, vibes like that. Anyway, so you can tap into that conversation, and that will be happening here Thursday at 5 p.m. And when we're speaking about this boycott, the most pressing thing that came up for me is that we cannot all boycott the same way. Okay, listen, it's not the most pressing thing. My sister blew up my phone and said, you can't say that people should boycott when South Africa has an unemployment problem. Yes, we're in support of the boycott, but people who are insecurely um, employed and small businesses, they can't afford to go the 8 weeks. What we want is we want to target the action at big businesses. So if you are still going to work, still operating your business this week, there's nothing wrong. All we're saying is in this week, don't buy the big brands. This week, don't go to ShopRite, don't go to Woolworths, don't go to the multinationals like Game, which is owned by an American. Don't go on Amazon. Don't like close your purse to big business, and where you do want to find that sort of product, start to look for the little guys, right? And support the boycott in that way, and all those kinds of insights. My sister, who is a Simmons School of Business educated economist, um, and life coach turned wealth coach, bringing in her personal experiences with money and her academic understanding of money, financial systems, and Blackness, oppression, subjugation, revolution, and how it affects the way that we show up in the world and through our money, is going to be our first guest tomorrow. Her book, Heart, Mind, and Money, is critically acclaimed. Well, that's her first book, is a critically acclaimed book published by Jacana Media. And this is Seeking Emotional Intelligence with Money. And she published this in 2012. That was why I could speak to my own emotional regulation in that interaction with Muhammad that day, and become cognizant of how I could use the moment I was in to tune into understanding what actually was going on, and understand that I'm coping through the distraction and parallel discussion, instead of starting a parallel discussion with a lack of self-awareness. The self-awareness was coming from this guy right here, Vipassana, and the practice of journaling, which I have been doing since I was 12 years old. And also how I'm able to remain as consistent as I've remained over the breadth of time that I've clearly been alive, is because I am a person who needs a metric system. I need a spreadsheet. I need to know the pattern. I do not, I, I'm a slow to act person. My natal Mars is in Libra. I cannot take any kind of action until I've seen every possible outcome and what. But you have already heard in this conversation how much I'm winging it. I'm winging it because the stars told me to wing it. You get me? Um, but I've been doing the work in that way, and I can say that I'm throwing all caution to the wind in the way that I do, because when I journal, I've got time, place, date, like everything, so that when I who's there, what I'm there for, like, am I, you understand, all possible contributing factors to how I feel, why I feel in that moment are listed as facts. And then I go on my emotional to give context so that when I now come back to review the kind of dream I had that day, the this, the that, the that, I can start to see what my patterns are. You get me? And that's what makes it possible for me to show up with the conviction that I do. But my sister's conviction comes from the reality of having studied business and being born out of a family of activists and seeing how being the children of activists will make you fucked up with your money. And she brings to us in 2022, October, through Pan Macmillan, What's Your Money Personality? And this book is just, it's doing things. It's doing things. It's healing people, and it needs to, because our country is having our Saturn return. If there is a book I think the Mandelas actually need to read, it's this one, because I think I'll ask her to give us an analysis tomorrow, because my God, are they fucking each other up, because they're going through their family's legacy, Saturn return. Oh my God, I don't know why I do that. I don't know. I don't know. I just like my filter goes off at some point when I talk about stuff that I get excited about, and you see stuff that's more honey than normal butter, and it's like very embarrassing because I'm a bit goofy. I'm a bit goofy as a person. But anyway, one of the things that my sister uh, and I agree on, and like absolutely agree on, is how one goes about journaling their experience. And that's what this journal that is available from her website, wealthy-money.com, as you can see it right there. This journal is like one of the most incredible things. So let me explain to you when I say metric, right? For when we're coming to review, you see what the input is that's required. So this is, I'm on my period, this is the date, and these are the questions I'm asking myself. And this is the information I'm supplying, right? And then I come and I journal about my emotions, blank slate. And why do I do this? Because yeah, she is my big sister, guys. You know how we are as children. We emulate because we learned, you know, and there's more about that in the book that my sister convinced me to write. Oh, she convinced me to write it, well, not write it, but finish it. Because I'm in chapter 3. Chapter 3 is me. It's an interview with me. So tomorrow we're doing an interview with her about how to make our money fight and bring us freedom, and that will be 5 p.m. Central African time. And there are more guests, and we're going to confirm and show those and share that as things come through. Like I said, people are really busy. They are giving us the privilege of their presence, but just in terms of coordinating, what lands where, we just need to give grace to them, because these are not people who would be just making time for anything if it wasn't important, because the work they do is so important. And I'm so grateful for everybody in my broader network and community who has come forward to support what we're doing here at Sangoma Society. Nisenza Bantu. I'm so grateful for Abantwana Bami who support and make me possible as Umuntu. And I'm so grateful that as we grow as Sangoma Society, entering our 10th year, that you are here with us and you are here to see the next generation of what this thing is, because it spent its first 5 years as a hashtag for my Instagram. And today it is a school and an organization. Well, before we talk about the future, today, what it did become is a safe space for community. And education and understanding of ourselves, you know, and I'm hoping that in the same way that that 3 a.m. video, which was the very first ever video we shared on Sangoma Society, um, made it possible for so many people to start drawing the maps and doing the work on their own and starting to see things, right? Um, and Ati is already on the website and she wants Heart, Mind, and Money. Heart, Mind, and Money, as far as I understand at this very moment, is out of print. It did have two reprint cycles or what, I'm not sure. But because it is from 2012 and my sister is now with a different publisher, but she now owns the rights to this. And I am not sure what the hard copy plans are for this book. So it is quite possible that it is currently only available as an ebook. I wouldn't discount the possibility that it will come as an audio book as well in the near future. So, you know, but in terms of the print, she'll tell us tomorrow. She'll tell us tomorrow. Please come and join us in that conversation. But this is available to all, like at all booksellers, your small mom and pops bookseller. So if you don't want to go to a listed company this week, that's fine. You don't have to go only to exclusive books. If you want this book, you can go to Bridge Books. You can go to your local bookstore. You can request your local library to make it available to you. Pan Macmillan is a global publisher, and I do know that it is available in stores across Canada, United States, the UK. I've seen social media content coming out from readers in those places. As you can see, I haven't even finished reading the book. It's just a bit difficult when you're getting read for filth and it's your family's secrets that are being hung out to dry. But you know, that's my sister's MO. She don't give a fuck, child. She gonna tell it like it is. And her lived experience is a bit different from mine because again, that 2-3 year gap, the Saturn, it's a very long time when you're younger. It closes when you're older, you know. So her childhood and my childhood aren't really the same. You know how we say we don't have the same parents because the parent as siblings, do you know? And we're definitely very different children in the way that our parents see us. I wanted to do fashion design. My sister wanted to study to be an economist. You get me? Like we couldn't be more different. But funny enough, with the work that we do, you might find out that we couldn't be more alike. I hope that you're here for that conversation tomorrow afternoon at 1700 hours Central African time. I love you. Thank you for being part of my community. Akubongwa. Ubuntu benu nisenza abantu. Please use the journal prompts and just process through these feelings. And as the emotions crescendo, remember that we're going to a full moon, right? And give yourself some grace. But by the time we say we're done with this boycott this time next week, I'm not accepting anything less than main character energy, fam. Can't do it. Are we good? Are we together? Thank you. Danko. Emakhosini akubonga. Makudedu bomnyama kuvela ukukhanya nhlobo.